It's Thursday at 3 p.m. You know what that means. Time for another DraftKings best ball draft. The world of Stochastic, of course, competing for $15 million in total prizes on DraftKings. The world of best ball, where you draft a team once, never have to touch that lineup again, besides, of course, checking it obsessively week to week. That part we have to do. We do what we always do in this channel, though. We're going to talk about some rules of thumb to build better best ball teams, give yourself a realistic shot at that money, and, of course, talk about all the training camp stuff going on, the risers, the fallers, the injuries, many of which don't really matter at this stage of things. We'll talk about it all here, but of course, I'm already in a draft room. Draft starting in 55 seconds. I'll be picking in the absolute opposite of influence here, the 12 hole, but I'm familiar picking in the spot, unfortunately, a good amount this year. Obviously, everybody always wants to get the 101s. I'm getting the 112s on the regular. The main thing we're going to try to do here is build a balanced team out of the 12 hole. Going to be some good opportunities to grab wide receivers, to grab RBs, and all of that. And of course, sorry to you guys, I've missed you on YouTube on Tuesday. A little technical issue with Stochastic's backend software for streaming. So the video only went out on Twitter. So if you are a completist who wants to watch every DraftKings stream I do, you can check that out on Twitter if you want, or you can just watch this one. I don't know, whatever makes you happy here. But our 3 rules of thumb I always try to talk about up top here. Main thing, first thing going to be important one to keep in mind if you are a regular DFS player, you're used to having your projections, of course. Stochastic, one of the leaders in that space across whatever sport you're playing in DFS. Here in the world of best ball, ADP, average draft position, is in a lot of ways very similar to what your median projection is going to be. So ADP is where a player goes. We don't want to take guys too early. We don't want to take them too late either. Well, actually, no, that's not true. You want to take them as late as possible. You want to soak up as much value as possible. But let's say if there's a guy who's falling for a reason, his ADP has been much higher, but he tore his ACL. You want to then throw ADP out the window at that point. For the most part, ADP is your way to judge, is this team full of value? Did I draft a unique team? Did I draft a really special team? As you get towards the August period of things, we have a lot of, let's say, 18th round guys surging. That matters a little bit less for some of that, but don't worry about that part. If you just soak up ADP value in every room you're in, for the most part, you'll end up doing a lot better job drafting overall. Number 2 rule of thumb, stacking and correlation. Again, if you play NFL DFS here, if you're watching Lofty streams, Ben Rossa streams, Eric Lindquist and Matt Kajeski always doing great jobs here as well. If you're watching that content, you probably know at this point you want to stack up your QBs, your wide receivers. Even for a showdown like tonight is technically the return of football with the Chargers-Lions game going on tonight. You probably want to stack up your QBs and wide receivers in that showdown slate as well. But here in best ball, you could stack up more. You could add multiple receivers, multiple tight ends, add a running back on top. You're just trying to capture that wave of production that comes from a team outperforming overall. So it's one thing we are able to do here in best ball, stack up a little bit more than you would even your most crazy tournament lineups. Number 3 rule of thumb here, and this is really the big one here. This is where even if you throw everything else out the window, and you shouldn't, but you say, everything I know about best ball, I'm going to forget it. The main thing you need to remember is that everything's paid out in week 17. People get really, I would say, cripplingly obsessed with the idea of advance rate. And there are people who made their entire case on Twitter in particular, victory lapping about having a 50% advance rate or whatever last year in some of the larger tournaments out there. Advance rate matters, but advance rate also means that a lot of times you're building a very chalky structure that a lot of players are having success with. A lot of the guys last year that hit, your Saquon Barkleys, your Derrick Henrys, were kind of unifying threads. Jamar Chase as well. It wasn't all the old running backs. The point being, those guys were in a lot of the top teams. So were some of the late guys like Bucky Irving, etc. But point being, Brock Bowers, you want to keep naming guys who were good last year. But the point is that a lot of those teams then ran into teams that were a little bit more tournament structured, didn't necessarily have the highest advance rate players in their playoff pods or in the finals themselves. And that's really where the big money's paid out in week 17, is where you're getting paid, your $2 million to first place on DraftKings, your $100K to the top 10 finishers on DraftKings big tournament. So you want to have teams that spike for week 17, not ones that are just built to get through and do the bare minimum. But we're on the clock here. Again, really RB heavy part of the board with Derrick Henry, Devon Achane, Drake London, a target leader last year. Certainly not going to get worse with Darnell Mooney starting training camp banged up. Ashton Genty has had some camp hype for sure. I like him. I have a hard time taking him over these 2 guys I'm going to take here. Let's get a little bit weird. I'm going to go Derrick Henry. I'm going to go Devon Achane. 2 RBs I like a good amount. Play my RB piggy gif is what I would do if I were on my normal Splash Play YouTube channel. But I think there is sort of a mindset of people who play redraft that you want to get a lot of RBs early on and kind of waste that draft capital in the early part of a draft. For me, as somebody who has played best ball now, this is going to be my third or fourth year maxing out BBM and putting all that money in. And really the first year I had it was doing streams with my pal Pete Overzet, kind of getting my ass kicked in best ball, didn't take it seriously enough. Went into the lab, had a really good first year, made the finals across Underdog and DraftKings. And then since then, just been fighting off injuries every year. But the thing basically that a lot of drafters who are like me, have been through the ringer a bunch of times, they tend to take receivers early. Your best receivers do go a lot earlier on generally, and really guys that are getting picked after pick 100 a receiver have a less likely shot of hitting upside compared to an RB after pick 100, where a guy like DJ Giddens, who's not somebody I'm crazy about, he's a rookie coming in for Indianapolis, but he's a clear number 2 back there. If Jonathan Taylor goes down this year, it's probably DJ Giddens stepping in with fresh, rookie legs coming in, and a guy who's got some juice in college. I don't think he's a world beater, but he's good enough. That guy can pay off. Whereas if Jamar Chase goes down, Andre Yoshevich is going to come in and be Jonathan Taylor, so that's, or Jamar Chase, obviously, which would be great as well. The point being is, like, you have that utility more with running backs. You also have split backfields a little bit more with running backs, and certainly you'll have the occasional game where a wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4 spikes big enough to matter for your team. But really the main thing to keep in mind is that you want to get receivers early. So here I'm not doing that. So because I took Derrick Henry, because I took Devon Achane in one burst, I got to be really mindful to add a bunch of receivers coming up here and maybe not take the elite QB, the elite tight end. And if I do take that, have to be aware of the fact that my receiver room is then going to need a ton of volume. I need to add in like 6, 7 guys in my next few rounds. Not few rounds. Ideally, if you do that, in 6 or 7 rounds, that'd be great. But point being is, the more that I starve a position, the more I want to throw more volume at it, the more I want to go on a run of taking that position over and over again. So when we're starting Derrick Henry and Devon Achane, you can do it. You just got to do it, build a certain way. Here comes Kitty the dog. Come here. You coming up, or are you just gonna wander around the electricity? Come here. Come on. You got it. There we go. There's Kitty the dog. All right, here. Say hi, Kitty. Oh, okay. There we go. Hey, say hi, Kitty dog. She's gotten much bigger since she's been on stream with me earlier in the MLB season. And also, we had her in NBA as well, though I don't know if I was on Stochastic Streams a ton at that point. But yeah, Kitty, my puppy here, 6 months old, and she's going through her adolescence stage. Kitty smelled pork. That said, she could smell me being a little RB piggy here. Hello, Kitty the dog. Appreciate you guys being kind to Kitty the dog. Spags being at the end means I thankfully can't snipe him from the 1. Yes, there's a lot of familiar faces in the room. You can see the stochastic avatars. You're at a guy Braden here, Pug Frog here. Nobody else here you want to call out as having a special stochastic avatar, but make sure you get yours as well. Make sure you are drafting, of course, on DraftKings. You can see me filling time here between my picks. We will talk more about some other training camp stuff going on right now, but frankly, a lot of it's just injury that's kind of minor. This guy's going to come back in soon. Malik Neighbors, people were worried about his shoulder. He fell briefly in rooms. He's now back in practice, making some of the best plays he's had all camp long with Russell Wilson. Same thing for, well, not same thing, but a guy like Marshawn Lloyd, my precious boy, who I've loved for now 2 years in a row, coming out of USC. Last year, thought he had a really good shot to be an RB2 for Green Bay and matter. This year, I think the same thing again. He hurt himself in camp. It turned out to be a groin injury that's not that serious. He'll be back in. Isaiah Likely's probably had the most serious injury out of all the training camp injuries that have occurred so far, where he broke a bone in his foot. He's going to be out at least, seemingly until week 1. More likely could be 7 to 10 weeks is where a lot of the Twitter doctors seem to think that the broken bone in the foot can go. But certainly how it is for Isaiah Likely. If you take him in a best ball draft, you're getting him now at a huge discount compared to where he's gone on DraftKings and half the tournament in best ball, their best ball milli maker that's already occurred. So I tend to want to take those players more than others do. The soft tissue injuries like hamstring stuff, you can worry more about that. But in particular for hamstring, like Justin Jefferson being week to week with a hamstring, I don't worry about that. Justin Jefferson being out 4 to 6 weeks with a hamstring, that's when that could reoccur. You could worry about that more. But that's sort of not the way I draft. So we'll see as these cases come up as we go. But as we talked about, we do want to try to get some receivers in here, and I think there's a few decent ones. So JSN working mostly outside for Seattle. Cooper Kupp can't play outside at the stage of his career. And JSN getting targeted a good amount, some decent camp reports in particular for the Seattle run game, but JSN's a part of the overall offensive package. So I'll take my shot at him. Do generally find Mike Evans to be a good player to make up some capital at receiver where we know he's got the big spike week upside. We also know for our best ball brain, for Mike Evans, he's a guy that's chasing that 1,000 receiving yards goal again every year because he's done it every year as a pro, fought really hard down the stretch of last year to get there again. This year, we have a banged up Chris Godwin, and I love Chris Godwin at his price tag. I think there's not a lot of guys going after pick 75, no matter what platform you're on, who was a guy that was a top 5 receiver before he got hurt last year in the case of Chris Godwin. So I'd like Godwin to get him out. Egbuka, I'm not as sold about the rookie coming in, Mika Egbuka. He's a guy that played well at Ohio State, but was not as impressive as previous Ohio State receivers. He's also mostly a slot forward guy. Tampa Bay did the same thing with Jalen McMillan, where he was mostly slot forward at Washington. They moved him around a little bit. Certainly with Egbuka, with the draft capital going his way with the first round draft pick for him, it's something where you expect him to get used a good amount and relatively early. But that said, people are storming for him because of Godwin being banged up. Meanwhile, Mike Evans has held this late 30s. I mean, at the worst, early 30s ADP the entire time. So I'm pretty comfortable with the idea of Mike Evans, where I think he benefits if Godwin goes down. He benefits if Egbuka's not as ready for prime time as people are certainly giving him the drumbeat for right now in training camp. But Evans and JSN, I think 2 players here to try to make up a little bit, as opposed to a guy like Rashee Rice, who at this point we're still waiting for the suspension news for both him and Jordan Addison. For Rashee Rice, though, we're talking potentially 4 to 6 games. That still is looming large over his head. Kind of crazy we haven't actually gotten that news yet. Besides that, green check mark here, a Puka London Marvin Worthy start gets you bricked up. So is that okay? Well, we hate that guy. The guy for this guy stalks me in every draft room. Has been in over 100 of my stream drafts in the last couple of years. Not the guy I'm trying to support here, but I appreciate your interest in his teams. But he is the worst, really. Just I'll say it across other platforms too. It's weird when you do these streams, people get obsessed with you and then have to do it all the time. And we've now passed the point of mental health. So yeah, not the one we want to shout out, but I'm happy you enjoy it. Green check mark. Other things here we're seeing on the board right now. DJ Moore, a guy getting some positive camp news, which is good for him because really they did potentially in Chicago draft his replacement with the guy coming in there, Luther Burden, a rookie who you've probably seen already getting yanked out of practice, put back in because he's not doing the right thing on the field by Ben Johnson, who's we're learning more about him now that he's a head coach and there's a little more media attention on how he's running a practice. Definitely more of a militaristic vibe, it seems like, with trying to browbeat some of the Chicago players, Caleb Williams in particular. It's keeping a functional team on the field. But as it is right now for DJ Moore, the fact that he's getting targets out of the backfield, the fact that he's getting moved around, the fact that, Burden so far has made some plays in camp, but definitely doesn't seem like he's particularly far ahead of the curve in a way where he could take DJ Moore's opportunity this year. I'm pretty happy to grab DJ Moore at this point, having some visibility into where he is. So good for our guy Braden getting him here at the turn. But I think DJ Moore is a guy I really had concerns about going at pick 40. If he's going to go a little bit later and now we've assuaged some of the concerns there, I think he looks a lot better overall and certainly a guy that has the faint shot of being your Amon-Ra, St. Brown in this Chicago offense, if it can be even a fractional amount of what Ben Johnson offense has been in the past. The DJ Moore is a guy as well that if I were trying to dig out here at receiver, I think he's a guy you could take and definitely feel like you're getting some projection at the very least. And I think still some ceiling as well for sure. Shout out to all you guys hanging out, though. Again, Tuesday, couldn't get on YouTube because there's a little bit of a technical issue with the streaming software. So if you can, show some love, hit that like button, subscribe, of course. Stokastic, known for its great DFS content here day to day. The best ball is a form of gambling you guys should be taking part in right now in particular. If you're not crazy about MLB, you're not going nuts at PGA, just throw some entries towards best ball. I think it's a good thing to do in particular if you know football. And if you're willing to actually, pay attention to what the data tells you and what you should be doing a little bit more, because a lot of people have a tough time with that. But we're on the clock here. Again, trying to make it up at receiver with the Henry Achane start. The best value right now would be Travion Henderson, but it's not really a big enough ADP value to go and deviate from that. Travis Hunter has been falling. I'm not going to go with him first here. I do think Deebo Samuel appeals to me a little bit more as a pick. A guy who's benefited from not having Terry McLaurin out there in camp. And a guy as well who I think takes a lot of the touchdowns away that McLaurin got last year. But that's me as a very invested Commanders observer from last year. Think DeAndre Swift to be a good click for me normally. Travis Hunter has fallen enough that I do think he's not a bad click here. Chris Olave, I'm going to go Travis Hunter here. He is a 4th receiver for us, so I feel like we can cover for the fact that maybe it might be a slow ramp up for him with him having to play on both sides of the field. Travis Hunter's talked a lot about his cardio, the fact that he feels more comfortable playing basically every down than he does playing partial amounts of downs, and he's apparently a kind of guy in training camp as well as teammates have observed. He doesn't get tired out there, so I think our main hope would be that for Travis Hunter, for drafting him at any point here, in particular if you took him earlier, and I was as well, he was going to pick 40 for a while, and now we got him here at pick 61, and that's where his ADP lies. For Travis Hunter, there's definitely some big upside for how he plays overall and just how he performed at Colorado as one of the most efficient players according to EPA metrics that I swear by from Sports Info Solutions. I use them for the NFL and my college research. For Travis Hunter, your risk you're taking on is that is it ever going to be optimal for a guy to play 30 snaps that aren't related to his main job for you as a fantasy manager / best ball drafter? I don't think it's great for that. But the offense of Liam Cohen should be better. The fact you have a Brian Thomas Jr. out there as a vessel to take attention away, a run game, which I do believe Liam Cohen will get popping, even though the talent there. Tank Bigsby seemingly leading the backfield, ATN heavily involved, Bashal Tootin, we see how involved he is. For that room, I think you're going to have a lot of opportunity there to put up points. So For Travis Hunter, we'll take the shot here, knowing that I'm kind of covered at receiver with JSN, Evans, and Debo. But just thinking through the risk more for Hunter, he should probably be priced more in like the 70-80 range. I think that'd be more fair for him. Doesn't need to go to the 100s like he was pre-draft best ball, where people were like, he might just entirely play defensive back. And I, frankly, even I, as somebody that does absorb a good amount of risk, really didn't feel like the picture was complete enough to make that shot at him as, being a full-time receiver. Then we got enough early signal from Jacksonville. They wanted to use him as a full-time receiver, have him be, the T. Higgins to Brian Thomas's Jamar Chase. But just not knowing how many snaps will play on defense, not knowing how that affects the overall picture. Those are reasonable risks. I think that if you didn't love Travis Hunter, I wouldn't blame you for it. Travis Hunter at 61 feels good. The guy's just good at football. I agree. I still think you want to take a player who is, incredibly fast, who is a really efficient player. He had over a 0.5 EPA per target at Colorado. I could actually find the actual number here because I do like to say numbers that are based in reality generally. Travis Hunter last year, according to Sports Info Solutions data, 0.51 EPA per target, 30% avoided tackle rate, so shifty after the catch as well. Very high, 16% touchdown rate, but that doesn't matter, just kind of a vessel of the offense. Target per route run was 30%. Actually, no. Where's that? That's 28% for him. Got Trey Harris' target per route run. Trey Harris, by the way, should be playing at least a little bit today for the Chargers. Trey Harris, 39% target per route run for Ole Miss last year. Just crazy numbers by him. But for Travis Hunter, 28%, really solid number there as well. So he's efficient, he's fast, he's good after the catch. He's got all the stuff we look for. But I do think if you're taking Travis Hunter and you take him as you take a bunch of RBs, you take your elite QB, elite tight end. I think if you're taking Travis Hunter as your wide receiver 2, you're probably asking a little bit much. But, that's the same case for anything. If a guy gets hurt and his projection comes down as a result, or the scoring is actually going to give you in real time comes down as a result, certainly that guy can be affected the same way. So for Travis Hunter, you're not really taking on more risk than the average bear. But, it's a big question mark. That's why the ADP is where it is. Anybody else on the screen that matters? Jordan Addison mentioned earlier, waiting for the suspension news on him. Caleb Johnson, a guy who is definitely people have been curious about for a while. A lot of the sharp draft guys out there. Thor Nystrom, I think, does a great job over at Fantasy Life. Previously, was over at Roto World, I believe. Great at analyzing college prospects. He has loved Caleb Johnson, wanted him to go. I think he's a Minnesota Vikings fan, wanted him to be a Vikings pickup. Caleb Johnson, big bruiser back, a guy that very much is capable of being that Najee Harris style back. Best case scenario being your old school Jamal Lewis types, being a bruiser. Absolutely. That said, for a power back, he did have some flaws in his advanced analytics that stood out to me where, he wasn't really as great versus an 8-man box as I think he should be in college if you are a power back. He's also kind of showing it as well in camp right now where pass protection, and it is kind of goes, different skill set, obviously, to be a receiver as a back, but be able to hold up against the blitz rather. That's something that I would think a power back should be able to do. He's struggling with it in camp right now. It doesn't mean everything. Jalen Warren is also the official RB1 of the depth chart ahead of Caleb Johnson. I don't love Caleb Johnson at this ADP. I think if you could get David Montgomery instead, a guy who's definitely not as exciting as Jahmyr Gibbs, that's why he goes 70 picks later. You're getting a lot more reliable production. I think similar upside. I'm just not a big believer in Caleb Johnson, and we've gotten bad news about him, so got to highlight it here. This guy took Trevor Lawrence at 81. That is not what we want to do. I have to assume that is an error because the guy's drafting a perfectly credible team besides that. But he takes Trevor Lawrence here, so that's certainly a lifestyle choice. Dog, no. We got Joe Mixon here falling because of the injuries that he has. I do like absorbing him, and I think he is a credible RB3 for the team. I'm going to go Joe Mixon here. He's injured right now, but still on pathway to be available week 1. If he's not available week 1, the beat reporters believe he'll be available week 2. He's not going to be on the pup list. So Joe Mixon, I think he's one of those guys who absorb the falling ADP right now. I don't believe he would be a falling knife, even though he does go a lot later on DraftKings sometimes. I think one more receiver here would be nice. Nothing I'm crazy about in this range. I'm going to go Chris Godwin here. A little bit ahead of ADP for him, but frankly, I was taking him at one point in the 50s, I want to say, is where his ADP was at a ceiling before. He's really a strong play, and again, we can kind of take him on. I don't think he ends up at the pup list either, but if he does somehow end up being ramped up week 1 with him not having gone in training camp so far, at the very least as of July 31st, I like Chris Godwin being wide receiver 5. It does make us live for a Baker Mayfield if he comes all the way back. And we also have a Tampa Bay Miami stack, which we're playing for week 17 here. So we have a pretty healthy Mike Evans, Chris Godwin with Devon Achane bring back as our stack there. So liking the team so far. It is a 0-3-5-0 through the first, I guess that'd be 8 rounds. We got Derrick Henry, Devon Achane, math, right? Comes easy. JSN, Mike Evans, Deebo Samuel. No tight end yet. We took Travis Hunter. Joe Mixon here is an ADP faller. Chris Godwin, another ADP faller. Frankly, another one that I have no issue taking either would be Darnell Mooney. He's a guy that has a shoulder injury right now, but they're not worried about him in any real way. They've even said he's the smartest player on the team in terms of like not worrying about him missing camp and like the fact it's going to hold him back. And because the shoulder injury for a wide receiver, he'll be able to be out there doing cardio still and keeping in shape enough that he can hit the field and be right where he was anyway. I do absorb these guys the most, I would say, out of all the fallers right now. Joe Mixon, Chris Godwin, and Darnell Mooney would be the 3 that I would say. I'm comfortable absorbing the injury risks. You don't have to be, but this is how we play best ball. Do I reach for my favorite first-round pick every draft? If you like Lamb, do you take him first, or that's too risky? I wouldn't advocate that. It really depends on what you're doing, though. For me, I'm probably going to have 50 entries in the DK Millie Maker, more entries, some other of the large tournaments out there. And that level, you sort of just want to take what the ADP gives you. You want to go, if you're in the 10 hole, you take one of Puka, Malik Neighbors, Nico Collins, guys who are kind of a flat tier there. If you go into the 1 hole, you want to take Jamar Chase. That's generally how I would play things. But if you're putting in one draft entry, in a best ball, I guess, well, for DraftKings, you shouldn't do that anyway, because you get one for free when you put one in. Let's say you're putting in the 2 entries, and that's all you're going to do in the best ball Millie Maker. Feel free to get your guys within that 1 round, I guess, because, like if you take CeeDee Lamb here, you're not really missing out on a whole lot. You just basically need CeeDee Lamb to beat out, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase. You can live with that. But reaching 3 rounds early for every player, if you're doing, 50 drafts, you're doing 10 drafts even, I probably wouldn't do that. So it's sort of up to you, but you tend to want to let ADP do a lot of the work. Again, ADP is a projection. We're not trying to outthink stochastic projections on every part of it. Maybe some parts here you'll see, this guy at 3K and this guy's going to be super chalk at 3,500. The 3K guy probably puts up a similar projection, really no matter what sport. Like that 3K guy might hit it pretty frequently and beat out the $3,500 guy who's much chalkier. You can do that in DFS a lot more comfortably, I think. For best ball, you don't want to do that over and over and over again because it just makes your team less valuable. Montgomery versus Caleb was a portfolio play. Also, Pittsburgh-Cleveland game stack as well. Yeah, I mean, look, Pittsburgh-Cleveland does not excite me very much for when we are in week 17, but certainly we've seen in the past that Jets-Cleveland was a game that on paper you would have thought is not the most productive game environment. We've seen, I think, both Jerome Ford and Breece Hall have outlier games, and that being a week 17 situation, sometimes the ugly games end up having more production than you realize. So, we never know. We never know. Let's see, Josh, again, another question. I always appreciate the questions in chat, and make sure you guys hit that like button and leave any questions you have in chat. Happy to take whatever you want here. Because look, we could talk about Keon Coleman having 1 or 2 good days in camp, but frankly, probably doesn't matter as much as some of the stuff you guys are asking about. Oh, we're getting spam too. There we go. I'm gonna ban the NFL Hall of Fame live spam. Do you like taking 2 receivers from the same team without the QB? Sometimes the QB goes early. It depends. Certainly, you can do that in mini stacks. I do think are underplayed. It was one thing I've observed in a lot of the good data analysts and best ball out there, guys at Legendary Upside, Pat Carane's website have done a good job pointing out as well. Mini stacks are really valuable, and sometimes people have a little bit of a brain lock for having 2 receivers without the QB. It's one of those things too, where sometimes I think actually the underdog winner a couple years ago, Fareed Shahid, a guy who's followed my shows. So you guys, if you watch the show, you're right in the hunt to be winning all the money like he did a couple years ago. But he was a guy who got sniped on one of his QBs. He ended up, I think, with like a Detroit stack without the QB or something like that, had to then build another stack on top of it. Sometimes getting sniped actually ends up being a blessing, as was the case for him, where he then had the stack and a QB that could beat out that stack's QB. So that's something too, where you get sometimes the benefit of the stack without the QB. But if ideally, like you want to get the QB of the stack because you're making a pretty big bet that goes hand in hand there. But if you don't get it, it's not like life or death. We've got Justin Fields coming back, Dak Prescott coming back. We do have a little bit of a bet on Washington with Deebo Samuel. I don't think it'd be crazy to take Dak or Fields here. I do like Fields a little bit more, though. And frankly, I just I've got a Dallas fade. And right now, I haven't been a big believer in Brian Schottenheimer. I've been low on Dallas. I'm at a point now where I have to decide, do I want to start to make it up on Dallas or just kind of keep riding as it's been? I think I want to keep fading Dallas, but I get some pangs of regret and concern. Feels like a spot to take another RB, but we'll have shots at more RBs. We've got a good baseline. Again, really do believe Darnell Mooney is undervalued right now with a 108 ADP on this site. So I'm going to go Darnell Mooney. He was a player that I made the case for earlier, and obviously before his shoulder injury. I thought he should have been going to the 70s. Like, I think with how he provides really big leverage for week 17 against the guy who I think will be pretty competent this year in Drake London. Last year, including the Kirk Cousins starts, Drake London had over a 30% target per out run, which for me is a gold standard for a guy earning targets at a really high level and being a guy who you want to kind of look forward to as like a sort of linchpin, I guess, a receiver is the best way to say that. Drake London had that last year. For this year, I think he'll be similarly compensated in terms of targets, in addition to, frankly, possibly going higher because the rate did spike up a little bit more with Michael Penix and the small sample size of him starting. I think that Mooney's going to benefit from that. Like, even though a ton of targets are going to go that way, even though a ton will also go Bijan's way in the run game, certainly the pass game as well, expect him to be probably as close to the ceiling he'll have in his career in terms of Bijan's involvement in the pass game. But Mooney, to me, I think is one of those guys where just being that sacrificial X receiver who's going to be open downfield, going to be the one running the wind sprints out there. He won't get targeted every time, but when he does get targeted, I think he's going to turn into something useful for fantasy. Not maybe as sexy of a play as a PPR situation, but for me, Darnell Mooney being wide receiver 6, I feel pretty good about this team. So it is a 1-3-6-0. Justin Fields here at pick 108. Again, I think it's just way too late for him. If he hadn't had that brief dislocated toe injury, I think he was on the way to rising up a good amount more because he was starting to get some steam. People pointing out basically whenever he's been a starter, he's been a top 5 fantasy QB. Now he's got an offense that's being built entirely around him by Detroit, legacy guys. Tanner Engstrand was previously the pass game coordinator for Detroit. Now he's building this entire, run forward roster for the Jets. And I feel really strongly about Fields here. That said, my concern for Fields and on DraftKings, we've talked about this fantasy VIP tool before, which I'll show you briefly on screen here. And this is not a Stochastic affiliated tool. So if it fucks you, it's don't blame Stochastic. But Justin Fields, Garrett Wilson, one of your highest owned combos, 39% owned as of the end of June data that DraftKings put out publicly. Hopefully they'll put out some more publicly soon. How that looks for me, I think, is that I worry about losing if you take a Fields unstacked team. Worry about losing to a Fields Garrett Wilson team because I really believe Garrett Wilson is going to be the primary target for that offense this year. But that said, look, we didn't get Baker Mayfield back at pick 83. Just didn't have any options to kind of take the stacks I wanted. So Fields, I think, will be a good way to build here at going late enough that I think he's definitely undervalued. Spurious news, the mini stacker. Mini stacks are good. It sucks. I think sometimes you take your mini stack and you think about the person who's you're sniping there, who has a QB, perhaps they want to pair those receivers with, but mini stacks definitely valuable. Justin Herbert will not be playing tonight, by the way. If you are, I don't think Stochastic's doing a stream for the Hall of Fame game. Not that I'm giving you guys great takes on it because I haven't done a ton of prep. I've been putting one lineup in tonight, and it's going to be pretty basic by my standards. But it is a Trey Lance start today for the Hall of Fame game. So that's something to keep in mind here. Not Justin Herbert going today. The actual starters, including Quentin Johnston, not going to go in for the Chargers, but you'll see the rookies for a little bit. You'll see Omarion Hampton. You'll see Trey Harris, and you'll see Trey Lance trying his best, trying his darndest to throw him the ball. We'll see how well that works out. Quentin Johnston soaring right now, 127 ADP. Carried a lot of shitty teams last year. A lot of teams that built 2 RB heavy up top were being carried by Quentin Johnston as their wide receiver 2, sometimes their wide receiver 1, because they didn't use draft capital the most intelligently. He's a guy that was really good last year, but you do have the very obvious replacement in Trey Harris coming for that team. So we'll see how it goes. This guy takes Tua incredibly early here. This guy's really Jalen McMillan at 130. What are we doing here? People just freelancing? McMillan hasn't been this expensive since they drafted Igbuka. Okay. Well, we got to figure out another pathway for QB2 because the Tampa Bay QB's gone. Miami QB's gone now. Michael Penix is here. We can dig out with that a little bit. I'm going to go Penix for a little stack with Darnell Mooney, who we just talked about, my having some faith in. Make sure I'm sorting by ADP. JJ McCarthy way after ADP, but we have no correlation here that makes sense with that, so I'm not going to grab him. I will go Rachaad White for my RB4. Certainly a bet where Bucky Irving gets hurt will benefit Rachaad White quite a bit. He's still a guy that's going to probably be in for third down pass protection situations, maybe some goal line work, even though he lost a lot of work, really lost the entire role to Bucky Irving at the end of last season for Tampa Bay, and especially in the playoffs. For Rashad White, I think over the course of an entire season, you're not going to give Bucky Irving that 99% role just because of his size and all that, and the fact that he's not, he's a willing pass protector. He's not a great one. So I've actually liked Rashad White a good amount. His ADPs have come up for the most part across the industry, but I think if he's going to the 130 range, still very comfortable with that. So the team so far is a 2-4-6-0, nothing at tight end yet, but it's 20 round format on DraftKings, so we can literally add 5 tight ends if we really wanted to. We're not going to do that, but can add 4 and not feel bad about it on DraftKings. The team right now is Justin Fields, Derrick Henry, Devon Achane, JSN, Jackson Smith, and Jigba. Mike Evans, Deebo Samuel. We got Travis Hunter here as our wide receiver 4, which I think is a pretty good spot to take him, accounting for the fact there might be some downside with him playing on both sides of the field. Joe Mixon absorbed the big value there. Chris Godwin absorbed the big value there. Darnell Mooney, same thing here. Guys that just were priced a lot higher earlier in this exact same tournament. I'm cool taking them. Not every draft, but when they align like this, I'm willing to do it. Michael Penix here because we got sniped on QB pretty aggressively, and Rashad White, part of our Tampa Bay non-stack, because we also got sniped on Baker Mayfield. This guy took Baker Mayfield unstacked as well. And he only has 2 receivers through 12 rounds. What are we doing, man? Look, I've said it a million times here, and it's frustrating sometimes if you look at teams like this guy in the 11 hole. Like, this is not a team that's going to win money. And I'm one of those people out there that's very willing to say, especially after what we saw last year, like, just because you don't draft the exact same way that I or other people doing best ball streams draft doesn't mean that you're an idiot, doesn't mean that you're dead in the water or anything necessarily, even though, following the data, you might be. But like when you do a team like this where you legit have 2 receivers through 12 rounds, you have no shot of winning. Like, no shot. Really, no shot of winning the tournament. Barely any shot of winning the pod, even if you do advance because you have like a bunch of running backs early on and a bunch of QBs that'll help give you some points there. On DraftKings, there are always going to be 2 to 3 dead teams, in particular as we're drafting deeper into August and you get more casual drafters just trying to put in their lotto ticket shot at $2 million up top, that $15 million prize pool overall. You're going to see more and more teams like that. And it's, unfortunately, I used to make it a bit on stream to really ham it up about getting sniped and being frustrated about it. But in reality, if they snipe you, if they mess up your team, you just got to live with it. And that's creating more expected value for you because this team is absolutely dead in the water. Like this, don't build a team like that. I'm sure there might be others that I could point out here that might be similar. There isn't always, but there's usually at least 2, depending on the room, 3 guys just throwing money away. I don't think anybody else is that egregiously bad. This guy in the 10 hole is maybe pushing it a little bit with Matthew Golden as wide receiver 2, reaching incredibly early for Jalen McMillan. I would say if I were to choose 2 teams that are dead in the water, it's the 3 guys next to me. It's this guy who took Trevor Lawrence really early, Tua Tagovailoa early, Russell Wilson 80 picks early, not the way to draft. This guy not taking any receivers, not the way to draft. This guy taking Matthew Golden as wide receiver 2, not going to be the way to draft. You're seeing it in real time. It's frustrating to me because I do like, you want to draft against people that are too good and you don't get any ADP values at all. But like, this is just like a chaos room. This is a chaos room with people taking guys with really no rhyme or reason. And that's sometimes hard. It's like playing chess with the chimp who's just like hitting the board, throwing shit at you. The real Queen's Gambit is playing chess against the monkey throwing shit at you. But these guys are just flinging feces in these spots next to me. So, yeehaw. But we'll see what we get around the turn. See what these gentlemen leave me for scraps. I perhaps use the phrase gentleman too liberally. The real shots put my money where my mouth is in terms of another injured player hanging around here. And you can see here, we talk about it a lot on DraftKings. People just hate the Q tags. Isaiah Likely, though, people are worried about the foot injury everywhere. It's not a DraftKings thing. But Likely could certainly fall further. That said, another 12 ADP pick discount. I'm not worried about the foot injury. If he loses 1 week, if he loses on the pup list, whatever, I'm going to take 3 or 4 tight ends anyway. So Isaiah Likely, first tight end off the board for me. Ray Davis, another decent ADP value here. Any risers I want to maybe try to grab? I think if Bigsby were here, I might have considered it, but I'm cool taking Ray Davis. Ray Davis is a guy who got over 1 red zone rush last year per game. He's a guy who also could benefit more if things just stabilize a little bit more for James Cook with him not putting up 16 touchdowns like he did last year. So I'm happy to take Ray Davis in general in any RB build, but for RB5, I think we're really good at RB. So the team right now, we got Justin Fields, Derrick Henry, Devon Achane, our two early RBs. RB piggy for me. I'm rolling around in my own filth. JSN, Mike Evans, Deebo Samuel, like the receiver start here, even though we did not get one in the first 2 rounds, obviously. Isaiah Likely here, our first tight end off the board. Joe Mixon, got him as another injured value. Chris Godwin, another injured value in my brain. Darnell Mooney, same thing. Michael Penix had to take somebody at QB because QB got ransacked. Rashad White, Ray Davis, our 2 R's here at RB, I think are pretty solid plays. Really don't know that I need both of them, honestly, in this kind of team where so much of the team's bet is tied into taking Derrick Henry and Devon Achane in the first 2 picks. These guys basically have to make the roster every week. Joe Mixon and the Hunts take one of their spots or make the flex. But Rashad White, Ray Davis were really, to me, the 2 best picks to make here. Certainly, in my opinion, better than taking DeAndre Hopkins 40 spots early. I don't know what this room is doing, man. I haven't had a draft thrown out on DraftKings yet. I've thought there was maybe one that could have happened. And a guy really reached all over the board, messed up the entire room. Didn't happen. So I'm not sure what the metric is for DraftKings throwing out a draft, but we'll find out. I think we'll find out today. Brady, you're cool to reach on. You can reach on whoever you want. 145 is totally reasonable. Ty Johnson had a good couple games late in the season when James Cook was kind of banged up too. Yeah, Ty Johnson, I don't mind. I'm a little more inclined to go his way. And he's still holding on to the 3rd down job. That's actually one of the preseason reports that was out there for the Bills, I think last week, where James Cook wants to get the 3rd down work because in his brain, that's how he gets paid the $15 million a year that he thinks he's worth. But the Bills don't want to give him that because number 1, Ty Johnson's been good enough. And number 2, they don't really want to pay James Cook whatever money he thinks he's worth and don't want to give him a role that gets him even closer to getting paid that, whether it's by their team or by somebody else. So it does seem like we're trending towards Ty Johnson again being, that 3rd down running back again, and Ray Davis taking a certain amount off the table. But certainly I would put Ray Davis, and ADP does that for you. I'd put him 70 spots ahead of Ty Johnson for what that role is, because Ray Davis's role is a little bit, I think, more clearly defined, where if James Cook goes down, Ray Davis will be your RB1. And, there's really not a risk of James Cook taking touches away from Ray Davis in year 2. Ray Davis should only take more away, you would think, from Cook. But there is risk of James Cook taking work away from Ty Johnson. So, no, it doesn't mean I'm afraid of Ty Johnson or anything, but it does mean that, he's got some risk when you take him in round 19, round 20. Trey Benson falls to 172 here, mostly because I think the Coach Speak Index guy tweeted out a clip of Drew Petzing, the offensive coordinator for the Cardinals, talking about the fact that he expects it to be a bell cow situation again for James Conner. All the talk this offseason, though, has been, including from Jonathan Gannon, the Cardinals head coach, the talk has been about doing a split backfield as much as they can with James Conner and Trey Benson. I don't think it's guaranteed to be like a 50-50 split or anything, but I think Benson at pick 172, greatly undervalued. I think you could see him be potentially a player who outperforms. Off the top of my head, I think he can outperform Tootin. I think he can outperform Jaden Blue, who's getting some nice coach speak after he got buried by a former Cowboys coach who was barely affiliated with the organization. Dylan Sampson, I think he can beat out. Najee Harris, he could beat out. I think Trey Benson at 172 is like an error. Braylon Allen's another one as well. I've been in the bag for him for a while. Really was hoping he was going to come all the way back to 180 here. Braylon Allen getting really good camp hype as well. The Athletic saying it's going to be hard to keep him off the field. It's going to be, in their opinion, more of a 1A, 1B situation with Breece Hall. That has been my thought process the entire offseason. And I've taken a lot of Braylon Allen, and I think you guys should be getting on the Braylon Allen train a little bit if you're not yet. We got Zach Ertz coming back here, trying to make it up at tight end, so we can do that. Got 5 RBs. Really don't feel like I need to press that more. There is a better shot, it seems, of Anthony Richardson starting. Richardson already went, so I'm not saying that for that reason. That said, Alec Pierce is here, and A.D. Mitchell is one of those guys. Of course, the Texas speedster who came in last year, people thought immediately he was going to unseat Alec Pierce. Instead, Alec Pierce had one of the best years, you would have imagined for the range of outcomes for Alec Pierce. Now you're getting AR potentially starting again there. I think Alec Pierce is a guy I've been comfortable taking throughout. But for here, I think that when you want to get a little more receiver capital in, going his way is pretty logical. And I would have been happy to take Mason Taylor as well there, but I kind of felt like we needed the wide receiver 7 more than we needed a correlated tight end 3 at this point. I'm cool making a bet on just unstack Justin Fields at this point, or I could take Josh Reynolds later on. But as it is for me right now, there was one decision point that I wanted to highlight. Mike Gesicki going at 185 here behind Elijah Arroyo feels a bit of an overreaction, perhaps, to Noah Fant signing with the Bengals. Noah Fant, though, should be in the hunt to be playing a good amount of snaps. So if you want to draft him, you can. He was pretty dog shit in Seattle, but so was Mike Gesicki before he went to Cincinnati. So who knows? But Noah Fant joining the team for less money than Gesicki's getting paid. So would still put Gesicki ahead in ADP. But Noah Fant, I feel like if you got a Bengals stack, if you just need a third tight end, I'd say maybe even a fourth tight end. Noah Fant around 20, if he's available there, probably the move. But he's in play. I think Gesicki's still the exact same play he was before. Just the projections got to come down a little bit. But Gesicki in this tier here, being a guy who goes around 15, around 16, around 17, I think he's a good click still. As a guy that did spike a pretty good amount last year for Cincinnati. Guys, show some love if you can. Hit the like button, subscribe. Goes a long way for me here. Just one guy, of course, showing you my gambling on stream, and much different from the other stochastic streams where they're preparing you for a slate. I'm trying to do that for best ball in addition to telling you guys what I'm seeing gambling wise, things to try to avoid. A guy like Jalen Wright here, you see falling a lot in this room. I feel the exact opposite about him as I do with Trey Benson, where Jalen Wright, according to camp reports, is getting outplayed by Alexander Madison. And Jalen Wright's still a young guy. He should get better. But with Jalen Wright being another Tennessee back, much like Dylan Sampson this year, Tennessee backs have had a hard time, really Tennessee receivers too, besides Cedric Tillman, who played kind of a traditional role for Tennessee. Hard time adjusting to the pros, and it's something that people aren't aware of because they don't follow college closely enough or just aren't aware of the fact that Tennessee runs like a total video game kind of bullshit offense where they'll spread 5 receivers out, have 4 down linemen basically. So the running back ends up running on air. Sampson is, I think, a very athletic talent. Film watchers seem to love him. The point being, Jalen Wright, much like Dylan Sampson, not shown a lot so far in his one year in the pros, and now he's getting outplayed by Alexander Madison in camp. I'm not crazy about him, even though the price tag is a lot better. But really in this range, like Miles Sanders, RB2 role right now for Dallas, even though you would expect an athletic talent, a young guy like Jaden Blue, maybe will be heard from at some point this year. Justice Hill, legit RB2. I think Jalen Wright's kind of carrying the vestigial. People liked him too much last year. They still, for some reason, think that he can get there this year. They think he's a contingent back. He, frankly, could lose work to Ollie Gordon, another rookie coming in who was a real big volume hound in college as well. And it wouldn't shock me. So really would be cautious with the guys you take here. If you're drafting the team at this stage of things, you want to really take the guys who are risers. For Jalen Wright, like the price point's low enough. I get it, but I would probably take a shot at this point on like a Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, who I don't think really has a guaranteed role like Washington. Like Twitter accounts are really hounding him a lot and saying he's going to soar. He's going to be so safely behind Brian Robinson and Austin Eckler. Like I really find it hard to believe either guy gets unseated. The roles they had, the involvement they had last year, I find it hard to believe that Krosky-Merritt unseats Jeremy McNichols, honestly, for RB3, because he was also totally viable in terms of what they wanted to do last year, and one of the lead backs got hurt. But Krosky-Merritt, at least, like there's upside there. There's potential that we don't know about. He's got without a ton of data on him because he only played 1 game last year. And he also played at a lower level before that. Not the kind of talent you want to get. Like if you have a first round running back from the SEC, like that's your apex predator in terms of a rookie coming in. But for Krosky-Merritt, getting mixed in with the first team, getting some camp hype, I take that shot, I think, at this point over Jalen Wright. But that's me hunting for upside. You don't have to follow everything I do. Wouldn't say it's a rule of thumb or anything. Definitely just buying a guy at the dip, like I've been doing all draft long. Totally acceptable to do as well. All right, let's see what we get these last, well, not these last couple of picks, these 2 picks coming up here. Round 17, round 18, and we'll have 2 more after that. So, of course, DraftKings is a 20-round draft if you're not familiar, so a little bit longer than some of the other big platforms out there. Definitely want to try to get some more in at tight end, but tight end is getting bled out. Even Juwan Johnson, who got briefly hurt in camp, he goes. Oof. All right. Darren Waller not practicing yet. Still a vague chance, I suppose, that he could just like not play. But I am going to go Darren Waller here. I feel like that's a click that at this point with our Miami Tampa Bay bet, even without the QBs, we've basically got a game stack going with 3 Tampa Bay players, 2 Miami players now, including Devon Achane and Darren Waller. So that's our 3rd tight end, a 2-5-7-3 build. I feel like I would like receiver more, but receiver's definitely getting pretty bled out. Would say that Dontavian Wicks is still a guy I'm comfortable taking. He's been hurt in camp, hurt his calf, I believe, a couple days ago. And as a result, not getting in the mix as much as he should. And as a result, too, people I think are reading a little bit too much into Matthew Golden snaps. When Wicks got hurt, all of a sudden Matthew Golden was getting in more sets, some 11 personnel, some 12 personnel stuff. He was out there a little bit more. But I think Wicks is a guy who, again, another one around that 30% target per out run rate last year, despite having the drop season. People certainly held that against him a lot. Wicks is still a guy I think that has upside in this offense and has shown he's got some amount of connection with Jordan Love. And really, for me, Wicks, in terms of being an 18th, 19th round guy, one of few guys here I think has legit upside still going in this range, who isn't a rookie and just like a total dart throw. So Wicks is going to be my pick here. Got a while before we pick again, so let's give a team a read. If you guys got any questions, whatever, observations, things you want to take on, drop them in chat right now. We got Justin Fields unstacked still, admittedly. Derrick Henry, Devon Achane. So our 2 RB start here means we have spent less capital on RB overall in terms of volume as we've gone on. JSN, our first receiver. Mike Evans as well, trying to dig out of that same hole from taking 2 RBs to start. Deebo Samuel, a guy that I like a lot. I think he will score. I don't know if this is a controversial bet. Let's see. I don't want to look up bets on stream because I don't know where I'm going to find touchdown lines necessarily. I would take Deebo Samuel to score 10 touchdowns this year. I think would be one of the semi-hot takey bets that I would have in my head for people that especially think Deebo Samuel is totally washed. Jaden Daniels did more with less last year would be how I feel about it. Tight end Isaiah Likely here. Took the value on him for the fact that he has a foot injury right now. Travis Hunter, Joe Mixon, same thing there. Injury/value. Chris Godwin, another injury/value. Darnell Mooney, same thing here. Just don't think he should ever be priced at 110 unless he was going to be out for a month, and he's probably going to be available week 1. Michael Penix, our QB with Mooney. Rashad White, Ray Davis, Zach Ertz, technically tight end 2. Alec Pierce, Darren Waller, tight end 3. And Dontavian Wicks is wide receiver 8. So 2 picks left. Could add one more RB, could add a receiver and one more tight end, I think would be what would seem the most viable to me projection-wise. But it depends what we have available on the way back because tight end is going to be particularly ugly. That's how we make our next pick. Show my guy Bree here. Which Rams receiver do you like better in late rounds, Atwell or Whittington? Atwell. Atwell's been, really hasn't been a lot of camp buzz for the Rams at all. I know the Jarquez Hunter guys were like looking for anything positive and like, oh, wow, he's mixing in a little. And it's like, okay, well, see how that holds up. But Jarquez Hunter is really the only we've heard anything from camp about, but it does seem like Atwell's going to be the wide receiver 3 there. Whittington is more of a direct backup contingent value play, I think, for if Puka / maybe also Adams goes down. But Tutu Atwell got paid like 10 mil. They wanted him back, which is kind of a surprise, honestly. But he's a speedster. He does something different than both Adams and Puka bring to the table. So safely Atwell for me. And I still wouldn't sleep on Tyler Higbee. I think, in fact, in this room, he might be a pick that I consider on the way back. Higbee is a guy that got targeted a ton when he was healthy and able to go last year. Obviously, it doesn't mean it's going to hold up this year necessarily, especially with the rookie Terrence Ferguson, who got picked here coming in. But that said, Higbee was one of those guys that the numbers would be shocking for a lot of people because they don't pay attention late season quite as much. But he had a 37.5% target per out run amidst the, 3 games he played in the back half of the season, 0.4 EPA per target, 2 red zone targets a game, not including the playoffs. Like, he got fed pretty well. Unfortunately, this guy took Higbee here, so won't get Higbee back. But Costa Special, you've gotten a Special tight end there with Tyler Higbee. Really not a special tight end, but you've gotten a tight end with Tyler Higbee. Noah Fant goes in round 19 here. Again, viable click at this point with him going to Cincinnati. Harold Fannin working in with the first team a little bit for Cleveland so far in camp. He's a player that did really stand out in terms of the analytics at Bowling Green. The issue was it was at Bowling Green. He's also really young. He's 21, not a natural blocker. So for Harold Fannin, I don't think he's a this year play quite as much with David Njoku still there. But the fact he's getting any slot work at all, playing ahead of guys like Jamari Thrash and Deontay Johnson is probably a good sign for him. And Deontay Johnson, another one as well that people take a lot in these drafts. Deontay Johnson is playing with the second and third team mostly for Cleveland, and I don't think people are paying enough attention. Probably shouldn't go crazy on Deontay Johnson just because you know his name, and people seem to be doing that. All right. This guy goes here. So we did lose out on Tyler Higbee, who I thought would have been a nice little Atlanta Rams bring back for that stack. Tutu Atwell also goes, so we won't get that either. But Theo Johnson, I think a viable tight end 4. I'm going to grab him here with my first pick on this turn. And And receiver, we took our shot at Justin Fields unstacked. Josh Reynolds, the nominal wide receiver 2 for the Jets. Alan Lazard might get cut in camp. Malachi Corley also might get cut. These guys are both getting outplayed by Tyler Johnson right now. Josh Reynolds, though, safely wide receiver 2, so we will take him here. So the final team is going to be a 2-5-9-4, and if you have anything, drop it in chat because we still got like 10 minutes if you guys want to talk more. We got Justin Fields, Derrick Henry, Devon Achane. At receiver, JSN, Mike Evans, Deebo Samuel. Tight end, Isaiah Likely. So again, taking a lot of injured guys. That's why we took 4 tight ends. Well, part of why we took 4 tight ends. We also took him incredibly late. That's the other reason why. Travis Hunter, Joe Mixon here. Again, a guy who I think will be ready to play week 1 most likely. If not, that's fine. I can miss 1 week. Taking him 20 spots after, 30 spots after, where he's been going this entire draft process, I think is still generally going to be a smart thing to do. Chris Godwin, Darnell Mooney, Michael Penix are a second QB. So Fields and Penix, I think a lot of people would want a third QB with that. I'm cool letting it just be those 2 guys, but definitely the Sims tools out there for some other sites. A lot of the data people out there pushing 3 QBs a lot this year. Your mileage may vary. I'm still more comfortable with 2 QB than not. Ray Davis, Rashad White here, 2 RBs add some depth. Then Zach Ertz, no more RBs after this point. Zach Ertz, Alec Pierce, Darren Waller, Dontavian Wicks, Theo Johnson, Josh Reynolds. So peeled off 9 receivers in total, 4 tight ends in total, 5 RBs with the early ones we took. I think that's a balanced team. I think that team is definitely not one I'm going to build every day with the 2 RB start, but I've been taking a lot of one of Henry, one of Achane. What if they both hit? I got to give myself some different looks. All right, Spurious News, one of my beloved people in my Discord. And by the way, guys, join my OddsShopper Tails package if you want access to my Discord. Also, check out my Splash Play channel where tomorrow I'll be drafting again on DraftKings along with Underdog, along with Drafters. So I will drop a link to my YouTube channel in there, my @Splash Play Pod channel, where I'm doing 2 try draft-lons a week, hitting all the big tournaments out there. But here you go. Here's a link. This chat here from Spurious News, and again, he's a regular. That's what brought it to mind. How do you feel going more 0 RB on DK, more balanced approach on Underdog? You definitely get away with 0 RB more on DraftKings, but I think still with how ADPs align, getting at least the hero RB in, getting 1 RB in those first 4 rounds is important. I still generally, if depending where I'm picking, if I'm picking on the turn here at the 12 spot like I did today, I'm always trying to get 1 of those RBs in with my receivers early on, sometimes 2. I've liked bimodal RBs the most, builds the most this year, where I'm taking 2 RBs in the first, let's say, 5 rounds at least, guys that I feel pretty confident about having a shot to be having a weekly projection of over 15 points, having that spike week upside and a dominating share of the backfield. I've just built less 0 RB overall because I think you can build good enough teams without doing that. But certainly there'll be less 0 RB teams built this year than there probably have ever been besides when Best Ball first launched on a handful of niche sites. I'm not going to the game theory behind 0 RB is still strong. How the board aligns is tough because I think you have to cut it earlier this year. You take 5 receivers to start max, and that's an extreme 0 RB build. In previous years, it would have been taking 6 receivers to start, and then you hit RB. But if you take Swift as your RB1, Aaron Jones, who went early here, Joe Mixon RB2, Brian Robinson RB2, Jordan Mason, if you're hitting at this range here starting in round 6, I think you can pull it off if you just nail all the right guys. And for me, the right guys would be Swift, Aaron Jones / Mason, at least one of them. Tony Pollard / Spears coming up. Dobbins here. I mean, he went relatively pretty early here. One of Scadaboo or Tracy, I think would work. Charbonnet is a contingent bet. Spears, I love. Spears is my highest exposed player overall across everything. So that's one of my biggest bets. Getting something from the Bigsby tier, the Bigsby, Eckler, Ford, Allen. It's possible it works. It's just you're giving up so much in projection. And it's been my focus. Has been trying to build better projected teams. So, my mileage may vary. Chase Brown seems to be moving up. He is a little bit. I think people, for whatever reason, people are worried about Zach Moss. Zach Moss might not play in the NFL again. He hurt his neck, then re-aggravated it off the field was, I think, what the reports were. He wasn't a threat to take touches away from Chase Brown, even though he started last year with the timeshare. Chase Brown took over that role. People also like Taj Boyd now, the rookie coming in, who's also a guy that doesn't have a ton of juice. Not crazy about Taj Boyd. He's draftable now in a 20-round draft. I just think people are expecting too much from him. It's probably going to be mostly Chase Brown and Samaje Perine backing him up. I think Chase Brown deserves to come up. He probably was underpriced the entire time. He's one of those guys, like a Kyron Williams. Trying to think who else would fit the criteria. Bijan's red zone works a little bit lighter, but Kyron, McCaffrey historically, ton of red zone touches last year for Chase Brown. Over the entire year, including when Zach Moss played, he had 3.7 red zone opportunities a game. Pretty sure it was over 5 after Moss got sidelined. Chase Brown has been undervalued the entire time. So the tough part for me is, like, I like Bucky Irving more. Jonathan Taylor, I feel like, is a little bit more projectable. But if I get Chase Brown versus Josh Jacobs now, I'm probably taking more Chase Brown. But that's the draft for today, guys. Hopefully it's added some value. Again, apologies I couldn't be here on Tuesday, but make sure to go download the DraftKings Daily Fantasy app. And if you want to learn more, well, actually give my plugs first before I play the ad here. Guys, check out my @SplashPlay pod channel, dropped in the chat before. Tomorrow, I'll be hitting another DraftKings Millie Maker draft, an Underdog Best Ball Mania draft, and a Drafters Best Ball Main Event draft on there, competing for $4.5 million in total first place prizes on there. And that's what I do every Tuesday and Friday on my Splash Play pod channel. So please check that out if you want. Join my OddsShopper Tails package if you want to get my rankings. Actually, can quickly just show you guys here on screen. Here's the readable version of those. You can see here a ton of blurbs, rankings that work across DraftKings, Underdog, and Drafters as well. So check it out. It is one of my really labors of love here to allow me to kind of put my thoughts together. But check that out if you want to get my OddsShopper Tails package. It's a part of that. It's also on the Discord if you join the right tiers on my YouTube. And let's play the video here. Go draft on DraftKings. You guys know the deal here. Keep an eye out for promos as well. Play that NFL Hall of Fame game too. But listen to Greg Ehrenberg talking about best ball right now because it's the most important part of the video based on legal standards.
It's best ball season, and DraftKings is giving all customers a can't-miss offer. Draft one, get one. Enter a lineup in the $15 million best ball contest for just $20, and you'll score another best ball ticket to play free for a share of $15 million, giving you a second chance to win big. Download the DraftKings Daily Fantasy app now to draft your $20 best ball lineup to play for a share of $15 million and get a second ticket to play free for a share of $15 million. That's 2 chances to win big without ever setting your lineup again. Draft one, get one, only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY at 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. 18 plus in most eligible states, but age varies by jurisdiction. Eligibility restrictions do apply and void where prohibited. 1 per customer. Enter the Best Ball $15 million headliner contest by September 4th, 2025 to get 1 bonus entry. $20 entry fee required. Reward expires in 30 days. See terms at DraftKings.com/NFL-best-ball, sponsored by DraftKings.
Greg's on vacation this week, so that's all the Greg Ehrenberg you get on the channel, I believe. But today it's going to be LB Live Before Lock at 6:45 p.m. Eastern. Got Eric Lindquist and Matthew Bellman coming up there, so make sure to check that out as well. And go draft on DraftKings, guys. You heard the long ad read there. You know the deal, but go draft, get your free entry. You put in your first one, and come draft along with me here on stream as well. You know when I'm ever doing a draft here. I tip off my Discord before I do it. But I'll see you guys again soon. Enjoy your days. Got 35 days till NFL season really starts. Preseason kicks off tonight, so get your mind right. Get ready for it. But enjoy it. I'll see you guys again soon. Enjoy your weekends as well. And, of course, good luck, guys. Bye.